Tens of thousands of people have joined anti-racism demonstrations across the UK.
Gathering London has seen in weeks, and one of the most passionate.
Profound inequalities exist in terms of accessing mental health treatment.
So people hide away from services. People don't want to engage. People are also concerned that they may not be understood. Communities, African and Caribbean communities' understanding of mental illness may be very different from a European understanding.
Okay, my name is Emichi. What am I passionate about? Well, recovery from mental illness is something that I'm really passionate about. We understand a lot about mental illness, but I suppose the counterparts to mental illness is recovery. I find that we don't really talk about recovery, we talk about illness. So I'm really passionate in trying to understand kind of, what exactly recovery is and how we talk about it.
My name is Elizabeth Charrington, and I would say that I'm really passionate about social change, community, trying to use my voice to make meaningful impact and my lived experiences to help shape services in the local community on national levels. My connection with mental health services started when I was younger. So I grew up as a young carer for my mother, who was still under mental health services. And that was quite rough and turbulent. And as I got older, I was starting to explore ways to speak up for myself and get mental health help for myself from services. So in my early 20s, I was under community mental health team and still under that same community mental health team. And I've transitioned from, I've been under the under 25s services for children, young people, and been now under adult services for children, young people. And during these periods, as a carer, service users, just exploring ways I can help myself and my mental health, I was told about Birmingham Mind and the local hubs and the opportunities to volunteer and participate in activities and the wellbeing services that they offered. Volunteered for Mind, started off as an events volunteer in a festival in Handsworth. It's called Mellow, and we did social engagement and social contacts with people in the local community, get conversations started about mental health and well-being. That was such an eye-opening experience because you got to see such diverse perspectives.
So as a service user, I used forensic secure services, and I've been a forensic service user for 17 years. Secure mental health services, and I still am a service user, and I'm under a section, and I have a community team who check up on me and make sure I'm okay. I also work in the mental health system, so I currently work for Birmingham Mind as a peer mentor. Been doing that for perhaps 4 years now, coming up to 4 years, and I really enjoy it. I think for me, peer mentoring is about relationships and being able to establish a helpful relationship. And that relationship is based on that kind of shared experience of the mental health service. And I suppose everything else, comes from what that relationship affords. So, and I think it's that kind of, that relationship is what drives it. Once people are out of hospital and settled in their homes, then the kind of this is kind of where I think kind of the real meaningful deeper stuff. You know, there's the high impact stuff that makes a quick, immediate difference, but then there's the deeper stuff where that just requires time with somebody and to have, you know, like I said, and that falls back on that relationship, and in doing so, you know, also helping me make sense of my own experiences, and that kind of mutual kind of exchange of, you know, knowledge, information, insight, you know, understanding. So that's and you know, but then that's kind of focused on really helping somebody take the steps they need to move away from the mental health system.
My name's Junior Higgins, and I am an outreach worker for the Young Black Men's Project at Coventry and Warwickshire Mind. I go into schools, after school clubs, churches and so on and so forth, and I build resilience through creativity with young black men, engage with them, like I said, build resilience and kind of get them on side to what we're trying to do. And that's kind of, like I said, provide some sort of refuge, you know, for these black boys when it comes to dealing with their mental health, you know, looking at it thoroughly, and using different strategies and different tactics on coping. It's just about engaging and trying to engage and being as transparent as possible with these young black men. They don't want to feel like you're lording over them. They don't want to feel like you're there wagging a finger. I think they want that experience from an elder, but then they want the springfulness or the youthfulness of somebody a bit younger. So it's a balance that we have to kind of meet in the middle. You know, I don't want to come across like I said, a teacher, and then in the same breath I don't want to come across as somebody who is just like kind of flippant with it. So it's a middle ground that I always try and attain, so to speak, you know. So I'll go in there and I can bounce off experiences, lived ones that I've been through, ones that they've been through, so we can kind of connect in the middle before we kind of even go into any big dialogue. So yeah, it's about connecting first, you know.
My name is Rachel Kelly, and my role at the moment is Equality, Diversity, Inclusion Lead. I started this role in June of last year, and it was kind of poignant the way it happened actually, because George Floyd was murdered on that end of May weekend, and then I started my job on the 1st of June, so it's been all hands on deck. So the Young Black Men's Project, I oversee that project, and Junior is the person doing all of the amazing work with the young people. And so I help them out with the boring data and analysis stuff. But I also link in with like broader organisations to try to improve promotion to our service. Because as you can imagine, starting a brand new service isn't easy. And then when you add in the factors of our population group, young black men, predominantly difficult to engage. There's a lack of trust within our community with regards to statutory organisations. And I know that working with some black people over the years, it's almost as though they think that Coventry and Warwickshire Mind isn't for them. They just see it as being a white organisation, and that's something that we need to change. So the Young Black Men's Projects came around really, really at the perfect time, to be honest. It's probably best to mention as well that Coventry and Warwickshire Mind, we have a board of trustees. So our trustees are starting to become a lot more diverse. And what it's their job is to make sure that our organisation is reaching our local community in the right way, and that we're providing the right support at the right time. And then, of course, we've got the amazing steering group within our Young Black Men's Project. So these men come from all different backgrounds. We have a police officer, we've got a student that's training at Oxford, and we've got some dads as well that are just really passionate about making sure that their future generations, because a lot of them are parents, that their sons don't have to grow up with the same experiences that they did. It's almost like trying to stop history repeating itself. So a lot of the black men have links already within the community. So one of them, for example, has a relative on Vanny Radio, which I'd never heard of before. But Valley Radio, I think they have over 20,000 listeners across Coventry and Warwickshire. And it's run by a guy called Theodas. I think I'm saying that right. And he's African by background and extremely passionate about reaching out to his community. And so it's just great the fact that they've got a link there, and we want to make sure that we build our relationship with Valley Radio, specifically around promotion within the African community, especially first generation African community people, because obviously culturally there are lots of differences, and if you're first generation, you're less likely to even talk about mental health or even acknowledge the phrase. There's a lot of fear, a lot of stigma, and that's some work that we're trying to overcome at the minute. And I think it's also really important to mention that we value participation. We don't see it in a tokenistic way, in that, we're just asking them their ideas and that's it. We definitely will touch base with them and make sure that their ideas become a reality.
How do you get service users to those meetings where they're being invited to talk about the service?
Once somebody's attended a couple of meetings or a couple of even events, and then they've enjoyed it, they're more likely to come back again. Some of these guys have been very, very ill. I think it's a big step for somebody to step up. It says you've got 10 people in here, you'll find that they probably won't say anything. If they've seen you guys before, but if they've seen these people before, they're more likely to open up and take part.
And I think it's the confidence and the meaningfulness of that meeting, and them having, again, the confidence to believe that their voice is going to be heard, rather than, what's the point of me going to this meeting? I'm going to sit here and talk about it and nothing ain't going to change.
Sometimes it depends how and what the meeting's all about, and if that service user is interested in that actual event or what they're going to be talking about, because you would have, given them a breakdown of what the meeting's going to be all about. Like, for instance, I'll give you an IE. There was a service user that really loved music, really loved going on the wards and playing for those who could not come off the wards. And when that project was closed, I got a phone call to say, Sandra, I really, really enjoyed playing the music on the wards for the patients. I'm not feeling too good, and I know that's one of the things that would get me back up on, the straight and narrow. How would you be able to help or signpost me? And I signposted him to a director who I knew would support him in some way or the other. And that young man today is playing around the wards the same way, because he's passionate in doing that. And there was a couple of other guys that was on the same project that follows him as well. So they go along humping the boxes because it's what they want to do.
If you engage service users at a very early stage, they tend to be more interested. They take ownership of the project. They start to look at it as, this is my service, and they're more likely to come to the meetings. But I suppose to a certain extent they think, well, it's my meeting, I better turn up. It's me who came up with that idea, and I want to see how it's going. I want more input in it, or just to see what their peers feel of it. So I'm very much in favour of co-production and peer leads. I think that those two areas are something that really need to be developed if you truly want to have the participation is one thing, but it's that influencing that you really need to be looking at.
It's kind of interesting, because involvement is about changing the organisation, shaping the organisation. But often people don't have a relationship with the organisation. The organisation is faceless. Who I saw on the wards were the healthcare assistants, the nurses, psychologists, occupational therapists, physical instructors. Those are the people I had relationships with, So when it came to kind of come and help us develop the service, well, how do I even imagine that? Because I don't have a relationship with the service. You know, I have a relationship with people. And, you know, one aspect of that relationship is that actually that the relationship you have with the service could actually be quite a difficult one, you know, because you understand that kind of as much as I have a good relationship, for example, with a nurse, you know, there's a bigger thing happening in terms of my stay in hospital and the things that affect that determine my discharge from hospital, and that's not anything between me and the person I have a relationship with. So not only do I have no relationship with this faceless thing has a lot of power over me, and I might not have the confidence to kind of approach this powerful thing that is determining my detention in hospital, to actually influence it.
When you go to be involved in like opportunities to talk to the practitioners or the governors within the trust and other decision makers, that it can be obvious that they do not see the same value in your voice or my experiences and what you can really offer. And sometimes it may not be spoken about in the room, but you feel, at least I feel that there is still an unequal playing field and an inequality there in why we are coming to help shape initiatives and influence things that are going on behind the scenes.
Experts by experience. A lot of these service users, like we rightly said, have got more experience than a lot of the staff, you know, in mental health, because they're going through it. They're experiencing certain things that a lot of the staff haven't experienced. So we have to look at EBEs, you know, experts by experience, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have no job per se, you know. So it's hard. It is hard because we live in a corporate society, like, you know, I rightly said, people don't take you seriously unless you have a landlord on, or they don't want to let you through the door, or they don't even want your question to be raised if you're not from a certain company or a certain organization. But like I said, we have to remember that these experts by experience, these service users, if it weren't for them, then we wouldn't have a job. So we need to kind of, on a whole, as staff, we need to realize that the importance of who they are and what they bring to the organization, you know. And yeah, I think as long as we kind of keep the divides, real conversations won't come out. You know, as long as we keep the hierarchy, real conversations won't be made. As long as we look down on service users, real things won't be said. They're going to be holding back. They're going to feel like, oh, well, I don't feel comfortable. So we have to get down to eye level, you know, and speak and listen. You know, that's why we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to listen.
My name's Doreen Joseph. I'm in West London. Currently work for an organisation, CIC, called We Co-Produce in Hammersmith and Fulham. We collaborate or co-produce with West London NHS Trust and other organisations like Health Watch, St Mungo's, Mind, NHS England. I know that you can have good mental health care. I know that you can have a good mental health experience in hospitals. But I know that also for a lot of Black people like myself, it has also been horrendous and re-traumatizing. You're already going through your mental health, whatever the problems is, they're bringing you into that mental health state, mental distress. And people have been good in my life, so I've had good treatment and I also had appalling treatment. But because I've had both, I can be galvanized, motivated to make a difference. I want to see that other people don't have to go through bad experiences and they can have some positive experiences. That's what motivates me.
My name's Sandra Vaughan. I'm actually the Chief Executive at Dudley Mind, and we do work across the Black Country, so 4 towns, Walsall, Wolverhampton, Sandwell and Dudley. What we've done to try and encourage Black service users, Black volunteers, we haven't positively gone out to seek people from specific communities, but we need to have, I think, a lot more discussion with the BAME community about what they think would be beneficial and what it would look like for them, like what topics they might want to discuss. Because we've got one of the groups we've got is a deaf talk group, and we've been discussing with them what sort of topics are important to them. Now, what's important to them is not going to be important to the BAME community. What's important to, LGBTQ is not going to be important to the BAME community necessarily. So we need to know what's important for them and how we can add value to that and open up that forum so people can dip in and out.
When people have been asked, sometimes we have consultations, the town hall might ask you to consult on this or that thing is happening in the area. And you don't ever know if they actually listen to your views, because they come and they do something completely different. A bit like when they do the voting and we vote for something and then something else happens. But with co-producing, you have more of a chance because you have your status is on parity of esteem, parity of participation. Nancy Fraser talks about parity of participation around social justice, where all the stakeholders around the table are equal in value. You may have professionals, you may have service users, you may have carers. And you can't assume that service users, because they're service users, they're all on benefits or they're all low educational standard. People are people before they become mentally ill. Some professionals are angels. They do stick their neck out and go above and beyond to help you. And these are the ones who you remember as ones who motivate you to say that, there is hope. There are staff people. There are people who do care. What I will say about when I have come on to certain meetings, because you have discussions around tables in meetings. What I have noticed is that you get asked questions like, well, how did you get to come on to this group? Because it's usually an all white or mainly white group. So how did you get to come on here? Because they want to know how you actually got on, because it's not inclusive. So then I said, I've been referred by so and so, such a person. And then when you say certain other things, always from a Black people's perspective, have you considered X, Y, Z? Then there's a flurry and agitation and feeling uncomfortable that you've raised that issue. And then there's a conversation afterwards. Oh, Doreen, we're glad that you've raised this issue, but did you know such and such? But. And then you don't get heard from again. You don't get invited again. Because they hear, but they don't really want to hear. They don't want to listen. They don't really want to make the changes.
We have had a BAME group, a support group, a peer mentoring group, which we have struggled with. We had it with short-term funding, and it is our intention to try and carry that on and to develop those links. And I think short-term funding's okay, but it doesn't give you a lot of lead-in time to lay that groundwork.
I'm only one person, and I head up the Young Black Men's Project. I have no other workers in this project. It's just me by myself. When it comes to admin and stuff, I've got people, Rachel and Leah and my managers and stuff, but when it actually comes to delivering projects and going out to schools and speaking to teachers and stuff, it's all me. It's all me, and it does get tiring, and it would be good if we had more branches like this and they weren't just funded for a year or so. You know, okay, we've done that now. Let's move on to this is about our lives as black people. It extends a year and a half. It's limitless.
I think it's about laying that groundwork and also trying to, well, understanding the community. What's the norm? I mean, this is one of the things I think is really important about anything. When we're working with anybody or giving them support, we need to know who that person is, what's their normal. And I've certainly had some what I call Sandra's surgeries, where people can come in, they can make an appointment of a time when they can have a one-to-one discussion, or they can come in as a group and give their feelings, their thoughts, negative or positive. Negative opinions are just as valuable, sometimes help to shape the organisation more. Nobody's actually infallible, and there are always, sometimes better ways of doing things.
Services shouldn't avoid speaking to people who are angry, because that's that they're angry for a reason. Something's wrong, and they need to hear what's wrong. So it's tempting at this stage to come to me and say, well, Em's not angry about this and that anymore, so he'll be this will work nicely in a meeting. Actually, you need to hear the angry service user. You need to hear their pain. You need to hear their distress. You need to, because that's where the things are going wrong. But through that, actually, what comes of it is actually your relationship matures, and you have a more productive conversation as you understand kind of how to impact things positively.
People like to get feedback. People like to know. I said something such as the other day. What happened? Where did it go? What happened? Did it make a difference? Can you tell me? That's what people like to know that. And people don't like to know that they've been asked something and it's just sat on the shelf and nothing happens. It stays gathered dust. People don't feel appreciated or valued then. And it puts people off and you think, why bother?
What's happened since summer of 2020, when kind of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter erupted into the public consciousness, is actually, I have noticed that there's a shift. There's a shift in terms of people's sensitivity to issues of people's sensitivity to race, the conversation on race.
I see that there's more of a push for representation within meetings that are happening behind the scene, to really reach out and co-opt black service users to broaden the representation and viewpoints to help shape Mind and other initiatives in other organisations.
I think it's had a great impact here at Mind. The whole Black Lives Matter movement, the events that happened with George Floyd. I think it turned people, it switched people on who wasn't necessarily switched on. It then made questions begin to be asked, rather than things that would normally get brushed under the carpet, or it would be just a conversation between service user and worker, But I think since the whole George Floyd thing, people can't really hide anymore, and that's a good thing.
I noticed in a recent Improving Minds hub meeting that I was a part of, that there's been, because of the increase in funding that's going on in Mind, that they're also trying to push to reach out to community organisations and community groups that are trying to help patch that gap that a lot of more established organisations haven't quite got the hang of tapping into. So they're really looking into understanding, like bringing that knowledge that those community groups have built and that understanding from their experience into how they're shaping the organisation.
I have a diverse group of friends, and I've had so many frustrating conversations in the past with, say, Caucasian friends who can't understand kind of why I reacted in a particular way or why I felt a particular way, and to try and encourage them to actually step outside of their view of the world and belong into the dominant culture, you know, and see actually how would this situation look to me, you know. To you, of course, they're a lovely bunch of people, but to me, there's actually, I feel anxious, I feel threatened, I feel, you know, I feel like I don't belong here, I feel awkward, you know. To you, it's fine because, you know, this is your bread and butter, but to me, this is like, I feel unwelcome here, and my reaction reflects that. So it's kind of, I had those frustrating conversations in the past, but something shifted even in my personal conversations with people, where actually the penny seemed to start to drop. Actually, you know, there are people who are different from me, with a whole different set of experiences, who have a completely different story to tell about, you know, the same experience that I have day to day. So that there's been a shift in it. I think societally there's definitely been a shift.
So there's lots of work that we need to do with regards to ensuring that our services are seen as being places for everybody, in Pacific, the Black community. And to do that, we need to show our faces more within the community.
Say if you want to include more young Black service users, consider talking to them about what works for them as well. Co-production along every step of the way, along all aspects of this participation and involvement.
We also need to make sure the way in which we respond and the way in which we engage with the Black community is in the right way, because there are cultural differences. Whether you are first generation, second generation, third generation, there are still differences in the way that you might engage in support, and I think that needs to be acknowledged, and it will be.
You know, it's all very well staff saying this and that, but that ain't going to matter, is it? It's what the service is going to say is what's going to matter. And from that group, hopefully, you will get the answers what you're looking for.
Talk about things. Don't just sit on things. You know, talk, speak, ask the question. You know, read the room, challenge things. You know, it's not like 1980 or 1970 where our parents had to endure certain things and go through so much hardship because they never had a voice, so to speak. We have a voice now, you know, and it's time for us to speak when things are not right, when things are indifferent, when things don't feel good. Speak, ask the question. Why?
I think we have a team meeting with service managers every 3 weeks online, and I'm there every time talking about equality and diversity. So we talk about race, we talk about inequalities, we talk about racism on a regular basis, and I think people are getting more comfortable having those conversations, which is brilliant. Yeah. And what I love about it as well is they're not just seeing it as being my job to do, but they're taking away from it action plans that they're going to do within their services. And that's the real way you can make change.